Hi gang, Dennis Allen with the Disciple Dilemma. This is another edition, the video edition of Yes, He Can Be Trained, lessons by a disciple in progress. That would be me, the disciple in progress. We talk a lot in the book about mission and culture. We want leaders to start getting comfortable with the ideas. What does it mean to live through a mission? What does it mean to change a culture? How does that work? Most of you, as leaders in churches, parachurches, and institutions, probably don't have much experience in culture change. In my own world, I had to really get close to that concept. What does it mean to change a culture? Because if you didn't understand how to change a culture, most of the corporations that I've worked with that had struggles and problems, there was no hope for them. You had to work with culture. Let me give you an example of culture, which I think will give you some insight here. I'm sitting in my truck right now because everybody said that they want me to use a more personal background to connect with folks and not make it so clinical and sterile like some of our talks can become, I guess. I was just thinking about a culture change that's gone on in my own life in the organization that we call the Allen's home. The boss there is my bride, Karen, and Karen has some very, very high standards about the way she thinks things ought to look and the way things ought to be cleaned and done. Just in full disclosure, I've been completely banned from doing laundry and dusting and vacuuming because of my incompetence in those areas. However, Karen has spent a lot of time changing my culture, which is I don't get to behave the way I think I want to behave. I have to start learning the muscle memory of the standards that the boss has set around the home so things look good. And that culture change took a long time, and she had to constantly think daily and weekly, repeat to me, this is the way we do things here so that we're all going to be happy with the culture that we've created. And I think she did a fantastic job of that. In many respects, that's the challenge ahead of you as a leader in a church or a parachurch or an institution. You have to be able to understand your mission very clearly. This is what we expect and what we want. And you have to be able to start thinking about, what does a culture look like? How do I understand a culture, and how does it behave, and how does it change? How does one go around altering a culture? Just quickly, so we can be clear about this, culture is a way of helping your people understand what you expect of them, what you have led them to believe in and to follow, such that when you're not around, they do what your mission, what your training and your coaching led them to do, so that the pastor doesn't have to be the only disciple maker or the only person inviting people to come to Christ. Other people do that too. That culture change is not as hard as you might think, but it does require time and a lot of repetition. And in that, we need to talk about, with some of these future videos, specifically what happens when you start trying to change culture. What are the roadblocks, challenges, and what kind of opportunities can you take advantage of? I'd like to leave you with a thought today, just to ask you to do some homework. We're going to talk about culture, and I want you to see biblical culture and examples of biblical culture that weren't working well because fantastic leaders weren't leaning into the culture to change it. They let the culture stay, and they just tried to be the good guys and let their good guyness change the culture, which won't work. You do have to tangibly change a culture. So the homework is, would you please take a look at the books of 1st and 2nd Kings? And would you read about kings like Asa, Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, Jehu, and Amaziah? Would you take a look at these kings and just get a sense of how wonderful they were morally, but how they left the culture essentially intact and what happened? Do that homework, and on the next Yes, He Can Be Trained, we want to talk about this idea of culture and its foundation and how you start making changes. Thanks for listening.